Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It was just past 6 when I walked into our house in Elmhurst, tired, phone dead, and another investor call gone nowhere. I dropped my laptop bag by the door, expecting to hear the hum of the TV or the clink of a wine glass in the kitchen. Instead, I found Madison standing in the living room, folding clothes with military precision into her suitcase. She didn't look up. Going somewhere? I asked, my voice flat but loud enough to fill the silence. She zipped the suitcase closed without flinching. I want a divorce, Brandon. I blinked. What? Finally, she met my eyes. Not angry, not tearful, just blank. Like she'd already moved on and forgotten to let me know. Why? I asked, trying to process the blow. You pick now? When everything's falling apart. Madison crossed her arms. Exactly. I need something not falling apart in my life. My heart thudded against my ribs. So your solution is to pack a bag and leave your husband when he's drowning? I'm not your lifeguard, Brandon, she said coolly. You gambled everything on a tech dream and lost. You're not the man I married anymore. You mean the man who paid off your student loans? Who supported your art studio for 3 years? That man. Her jaw tightened. This isn't about the past. It's all about the past. I snapped. You knew this startup would take everything. You were with me when I took that risk. She looked away, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I was with a man who had potential. Now you're just clinging to a dead idea. The words hit like a punch. Have you met someone? I asked, the air suddenly thick. Madison froze for half a second, not long enough for certainty, but too long for comfort. Then she said, no, but I didn't believe her. Unbelievable, I muttered, pacing. You wait until I've got a bank account gasping for air, until I'm one legal notice away from bankruptcy, and now you walk. She didn't reply, just wheeled her suitcase toward the door. I won't beg, I said. If this is who you are, then go. Madison paused at the door, hand on the knob. I knew you wouldn't. And then she was gone, just like that. No tears, no hugs, no parting words. Just silence and a soft click of the door shutting behind her. I stood alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by everything we'd built, everything she'd just walked away from like it was an expired lease. That night, the quiet felt like it had teeth. But I didn't sit down. I didn't scream. I didn't crumble. Because something deeper was already taking root in me. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the start of something else. That night, the silence in the house didn't feel like silence. It felt like something alive, creeping into every corner, curling up on the furniture like fog, filling the gaps Madison used to occupy. I didn't bother turning on the lights. Just dropped into the worn leather armchair by the fireplace, the one she used to complain was too masculine for the living room. The room was half lit by the street lamp outside and the pale glow of the microwave clock from the kitchen. I sat there for a long while, still in my jacket, staring straight ahead at nothing. Then I stood, walked into the kitchen, opened the cabinet above the fridge, and reached for the bottle of Blanton's I'd been saving for a win that never came. The cork made a quiet pop, and that soft sound felt louder than it should have in a house that was suddenly too big for one person. I didn't use a glass. I brought the bottle back with me to the armchair, sat down again, and took a slow sip. It burned, but not enough. Then I took another, and another. Somewhere around the fourth pull, the thoughts started to take shape. Those jagged little pieces of memory, shame, and frustration that had been swirling around my mind like dust in sunlight. The startup. It used to feel like a rocket waiting to launch, full of promise, fueled by passion. But lately, it felt more like a dying animal, gasping for air while I kept trying to resuscitate it with increasingly desperate investor calls and sleepless nights. I opened my phone and stared at the emails I didn't want to read. One subject line: declining your proposal. Our fund is pivoting. Another: final notice, outstanding balance. I swiped them all away. Not tonight. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Maybe she's right, I said aloud, the words tasting like rust. Maybe I'm not the man she married. A floorboard creaked near the hallway. Just the house settling, but it felt like a response. I shook my head. But I'm still standing. Another drink. I didn't even want to be drunk. I just didn't want to feel sharp. I reached for my phone again. Her number was still pinned at the top. I stared at it. My thumb hovered, trembling slightly. I didn't call. Instead, I opened my camera roll, scrolling past pictures of her birthday dinner last month, Our weekend in Lake Geneva 2 summers ago. The blurry selfie we'd taken in the hospital hallway when my dad passed. I stopped on that one. She had her head on my shoulder. I had tears in my eyes. I stared at it for a long time, then locked the phone and tossed it onto the coffee table. The ticking of the clock above the mantel filled the room again. Tick, tick, tick. I whispered, I'm not begging, Madison. Because that's the line she crossed. She didn't just leave. She waited until I was cornered, low on money, low on energy, low on hope. And then she walked. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. No explanation. No fight. Just clean hands and a suitcase. I closed my eyes and exhaled through my nose. It wasn't even heartbreak that gripped me. It was insult. The quiet kind that burrows under your skin and burns slow. I'd given her everything I had. Not just money, but time. Every Sunday coffee run. Every late night call from the office. Every, I'll be home late again, don't wait up. And now? Now I was sitting in a house we'd bought together, sipping a whiskey she used to hide from guests, trying not to feel like the world had just voted me off the island. But here's the thing. I wasn't going to drown. No matter how deep this storm got, the debt, the silence, the betrayal, I wasn't going under. I poured one last shot into a glass this time, held it up to the streetlight, let the amber catch the glow. To the last man standing, I muttered, and drank it down. Then I picked up the remote, turned on the TV just loud enough to quiet the clock, and stared at the screen without seeing it, not thinking of what I'd lost, but what I had left to rebuild. It was still raining when I stepped into the office that Tuesday morning. The kind of soft, persistent rain that made the city feel like it was under a gray tarp. The lobby was quiet. No receptionist, no deliveries, just the low hum of fluorescent lights and that wet paper smell from the old carpet we kept promising to replace. I took the elevator to the 5th floor, our floor, and when the doors opened, I was greeted by the echo of my own footsteps. The office was half empty now. Half the desks were pushed to the side, some monitors disconnected. The intern table was gone. Even the big whiteboard where we used to sketch product roadmaps sat blank, a smudge of forgotten ideas. Derek was already there, hunched over a mug of coffee at the far end of the room. His sleeves rolled up. Same gray hoodie he always wore when things were tight. He didn't look up when I walked in. I dropped my bag by my desk, exhaled, and walked over. Madison left, I said simply. Derek looked up slowly, eyes squinting like he hadn't slept much. What? She's gone, I repeated. Packed her suitcase, said she wants a divorce. That was Sunday night. For a second, he just sat there. Then he rubbed the back of his neck and leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. Man, I'm sorry, he said, voice quiet. That's rough. You too were. I thought you were solid. Yeah, me too, I muttered. A long silence fell between us. The kind where something unspoken creeps in and settles like dust. Then Derek set his mug down, folded his hands, and looked me dead in the eye. I've been meaning to talk to you, he started. My stomach tightened. He glanced away briefly, then back again. I think I'm going to pull out of the company. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. You're what? I said, trying to keep my tone level. I want to cash out my stake, he said. I've been thinking about it for a while. With everything slowing down, the funding drying up, the delays, I think it's time. I stared at him, blinking. The rain tapped at the window behind him like a ticking clock. You're serious? He nodded. I've got a job offer lined up already. Product director at a fintech firm. More stable. Bigger team. They move fast. It's a lifeboat, I cut in. That's what it is. Derek didn't deny it. I turned and walked over to the window. The city below looked like a photograph left in the rain, blurry, distant. Look, Brandon, Derek said behind me. You know I've had your back for a long time. We built this thing together. But it's not working anymore. You know it. The market's shifted. We missed our window. I can't sink with the ship just because I helped build it. I didn't answer. Just watched a cab roll through the intersection, its yellow shape smeared in the puddles like a broken crayon. You always said we were partners, I said quietly. Thick and thin. That's what you told me the day we signed the first lease. I meant it, Derek said. But this isn't personal. I turned around, looked at him. That's the problem, man. It should be. He looked away. I didn't argue. Didn't yell. What was the point? People leave. Sometimes fast. Sometimes quiet. Sometimes they even call it a favor. I'll have the paperwork drawn up, Derek said, standing. You'll get my shares. I just want out clean. He grabbed his jacket and paused at the door. Take care of yourself, B. Then he walked out. I sat down, leaned back in the chair, and stared out the window again. First Madison, now Derek. And me? Still standing, in a building that was starting to feel just as hollow as everything else I had left. It was raining again the morning of the hearing. I remember thinking the weather matched the whole mood, gray, wet, and just heavy enough to keep your shoulders slightly hunched, like even the sky didn't want to look anyone in the eye. The courthouse was quiet when I walked in, just the hum of security machines and a few voices echoing off marble walls. I wore the only decent suit I still owned, charcoal, pressed, but tighter than it used to be. I'd lost weight. Didn't even realize how much until I caught my reflection in the security glass. Madison was already in the courtroom. She didn't look surprised to see me walk in. She looked prepared, hair tied back, expensive coat. Her lawyer beside her, flipping through papers with the confidence of someone who was paid by the hour and never missed a comma. She didn't look at me right away. I took my seat next to my own lawyer, a quiet guy named Clark who spoke more with a raised eyebrow than with actual words. The judge entered. Case of Harlow versus Harlow. We stood, then sat again. Her lawyer started things off with a tone so smooth it could have been mistaken for sympathy. Your Honor, Mrs. Harlow is entitled to half of all marital assets, including the equity in Mr. Harlow's business. Regardless of current financial performance, that company was built during their marriage. She's not asking for more than her fair share, only what she legally deserves. I didn't look at her, not at first. Clark leaned over. They're going for the kill. I know, I said softly. Let them. The judge turned to us. Mr. Harlow, your response? I stood. My voice didn't shake. Your Honor, I'm not contesting the divorce. I'm not here to drag this out. I'm willing to give Madison the house. And the car. All I ask is that I keep the company. What's left of it? There was a pause. The judge raised an eyebrow. The valuation of your business, as submitted, shows a significant loss. Yes, ma'am, I replied. We're down to almost nothing. I know what I'm holding on to, but it's mine to rebuild. Or bury. I finally turned to Madison. She stared straight ahead, eyes unreadable. I just want to keep the thing I poured everything into, I said. If she wants the rest, she can have it. Clark shifted beside me, surprised. Even the judge leaned back slightly, as if she hadn't expected that level of clarity from someone who looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. Madison's lawyer cleared his throat. My client will accept the proposal. The judge nodded. So noted. I could have just sat down, but I didn't. Instead, I turned fully to Madison and spoke loud enough for the room to hear. Thank you, I said, for the years we had. I wish they'd ended differently. Her jaw tightened. Whatever happens next, I mean that, I added. Even if I never understand why you left. She looked at me then, briefly, but she didn't speak. I nodded once, turned to the judge, and said, that's all. The judge was quiet for a beat before offering a rare, almost respectful, you're dismissed. As I walked out, I didn't feel lighter. I didn't feel stronger, but I felt intact. And sometimes, that's enough to build from. 3 days after the hearing, I was living out of my car. Not sleeping in it. Not yet, but every shirt I owned was folded in the back seat, and my laptop bag had turned into a makeshift filing cabinet. I'd been couch hopping. 2 nights at a buddy's place in Naperville, 1 awkward sleep on the floor of an ex-coworker's home office. But I knew I was running out of places to park my pride. Then came the message. Nicole Harlow, hey, I heard about everything. If you need a place to crash, my couch is open. I'm in Joliet now. No pressure. Nicole, Madison's little sister. Younger by 5 years. Always the quiet one at family dinners. The one who'd roll her eyes when Madison tried to dominate a story. I remembered once she'd passed me a note under the table at Thanksgiving. You're the only reason these dinners are tolerable. Back then, I just smiled and tucked it into my pocket. I never threw it away. I didn't reply to her text right away. Took me nearly an hour just to type. Are you sure? She answered in 5 seconds. Absolutely. Nicole's apartment sat above a florist shop, on a quiet block with a liquor store on one end and a dry cleaner that hadn't updated its sign since the 90s. The building was old but clean, and the steps up to her place were narrow enough that I had to turn sideways to carry my duffel. She opened the door before I even knocked. Hey, she said, pulling the door wider. You look like a man who's either heartbroken or recently mugged. I gave her a half smile. Bit of both. The apartment was small, 2 rooms and a galley kitchen, but it was warm, smelled like cinnamon, and had actual light. Her couch, draped in a soft blue blanket, already had a pillow waiting. I'm not going to cry, I said, setting my bag down. But this feels like oxygen. She grinned, then breathed deep. That pillow's yours indefinitely. The days settled into rhythm. Mornings, I'd wake early and work from her kitchen table, pitching what remained of the company to whoever would listen. The calls were short, the answers shorter. Most emails went unread. Some bounced back. I'd stare at the screen, jaw tight, trying to ignore the slow erosion of what I'd built. Meanwhile, Nicole would float in and out, pouring coffee, humming while she got ready for work. She taught art at a local elementary school. Came home every afternoon smelling like glue and paint. Some nights, we'd eat together. Cheap pasta, stir-fry, whatever she could whip up with coupons and leftovers. I offered to help with groceries the first week. She waved me off. You'll pay me back when you're rich again, she said, grinning. I'm serious, I told her. I don't take charity. She looked at me, gently. And I'm not offering it. This is just life. People help each other sometimes. There was no pity in her eyes, only understanding. A week passed, then 2. One night, as she rinsed dishes and I sat with a lukewarm beer, I finally said what had been pressing at my chest. Nicole, I know this isn't your problem, and I know how weird this probably is, taking in your sister's ex. She didn't look up. You're not Madison's ex to me. I frowned. Then who am I? She turned around, wiped her hands on a towel, and leaned against the sink. You're Brandon. The guy who showed up to every family barbecue even when Madison didn't want to go. The one who helped me move out of my dorm at U of I when nobody else would. The one who laughed at my terrible jokes and told me my stupid clay mugs actually had charm. I let out a soft breath, unsure what to say. I'm just saying, she added, voice low. You're not here out of pity. You're here because I trust you. And because I'm glad you're here. That night, as I lay on her couch staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, I realized something that hit deeper than anything in court. This wasn't the bottom. This, Nicole's apartment, her quiet kindness, the scent of cinnamon in the hall. This was the first brick in something new. And maybe, just maybe, I still had something worth building. The first thing I noticed that October morning was the silence. Not the heavy kind I used to drown in, but a peaceful quiet that belonged to early coffee, open windows, and someone humming in the kitchen. Nicole. She was off-key, always, but she didn't care. I pushed the blanket off and sat up on the couch. Except, I wasn't sleeping on the couch anymore. That shift happened months ago. Subtle, slow, natural. My things now had drawers. Her extra toothbrush was no longer extra. One night, I fell asleep next to her while we watched a movie, and we never went back. We were us. And the company? Somehow it survived. It was one tiny breakthrough, a mid-sized logistics client who took a chance on my software. That deal turned into 2, then 6. Then I was pitching again with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Confidence. This morning, I opened my laptop to check the numbers, and there it was, 6 figures cleared. The first real profit. I just stared at the screen. Then, from the kitchen, Nicole called out, "Is that the face of a man who finally doesn't have to eat instant noodles?" I laughed. That's the face of a man who might just buy a table that isn't from Craigslist. That night, I booked a rooftop dinner in the city. Small place, string lights overhead, heaters glowing like warm lanterns in the crisp fall air. Nicole wore this burgundy sweater dress and those boots she always called her splurge regret, but never stopped wearing. We ordered hot cider, shared flatbread, and just existed. Easy, close, real. At some point, I looked across the table at her, lit by that amber light, wind tossing her hair gently, and I stopped eating mid-sentence. She raised an eyebrow. What? I need to say something. She tilted her head. Okay, I love you. It just came out. No dramatic pause. No rehearsed lines. I love you, Nicole. Not because of what you've done for me, but because of who you are. This life, whatever it is, I want it with you. Her lips parted slightly, and for a second, she just stared at me. Then came the blush. Soft, deep, spreading across her cheeks like a sunrise. I was wondering when you'd say that, she whispered, smiling so wide it made my chest ache in the best way. Because I've been there for a while now. I reached across the table and took her hand. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it, but it buzzed again. Nicole gave me a look. You can check it. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Madison, we need to talk. Urgently. For a second, I just stared at it. Then, still holding Nicole's hand, I typed back, another time. I'm on a date with your sister. And hit send. Nicole raised an eyebrow. Was that? Yep. She grinned. About time she saw who stayed. I leaned back, cider in hand, heart steady. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt whole. Before we move on, tap like if this is landing for you. It was mid-afternoon, the kind of late Friday lull where emails slow to a trickle and office chatter fades into the background hum of machines and muted keyboards. I stood near the conference room window, watching downtown traffic crawl below like ants in molasses. Nicole had sent me a photo just an hour ago, her holding up a mug I'd once called hideous. Your favorite cup survived the dishwasher. I take that as a good omen. I smiled at my phone like a man who didn't know a storm was coming. The door to the office slammed open. I turned, slowly. There she was. Madison. Windblown. Pale. Eyes rimmed with red. She didn't knock. She didn't speak. She just walked in like the room owed her silence. Brandon, she said, her voice breaking. I said nothing. I just walked behind my desk and took a seat. Calm. Grounded. I gestured to the chair across from me like I was welcoming a client. Not the woman who'd packed a suitcase and walked out of our life without a backward glance. She sat. But barely. I messed up, she whispered, hands shaking. Badly. Worse than you know. Still, I said nothing. She looked up, met my eyes, and for the first time since the divorce hearing, I saw the real fear in her face. Not anger. Not cold calculation. Just a sinking woman realizing the floor had given out. It was Derek, she said. No gas from me. No reaction. She blinked, waiting for one. We were already involved when things started falling apart at the company. I didn't plan it. It just happened. And he told me you were lost in the business, Brandon. Obsessed. Blinded. My jaw tightened. I leaned back, arms crossed. Still no words. Madison took a shaky breath. He started talking about how maybe you weren't the right guy to lead the company anymore. How if he took control, he could save it. Said he'd bring in better clients, clean things up. I was scared. Tired. I believed him. She wiped her face with her sleeve. But he didn't save it. He drained it. Quietly. Took leads. Rerouted them to another firm he was consulting with on the side. He used me to get into your blind spot. I didn't know at first. I swear. But when I found out, I was already too far in. I stood up slowly and walked to the window. Hands in pockets. Back to her. I thought you should hear it from me, she said. Before it all comes out in court. Derek's getting sued by that firm now. It's going to be public. I wanted you to know you wanted to get ahead of it. I said, finally. My voice was low. Even. Not angry. Just, done. She swallowed. Brandon, I never meant to destroy you. I turned, met her gaze. You didn't, I said simply. You just made sure I had nothing left to stand on. Her lip trembled. I loved you, she whispered. I believe you, I replied. You just loved yourself more. She took a breath, maybe ready to argue, maybe ready to plead. I didn't give her the chance. There's nothing left to say, Madison. She stood slowly, her shoulders slumped like she'd aged 10 years since she walked in. Nicole's good to you, she said. I can see that. She always saw you better than I did. I didn't respond. She turned, walked to the door, hand on the handle. I am sorry, she said one last time. I said nothing. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood in the middle of my office, surrounded by everything I'd rebuilt, and finally understood the shape of the wound I'd carried for over a year. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was clarity, and clarity is colder than grief. But it hurts less. I didn't rush. I gave it 2 days. Time to sit with the truth. Time for the dust to settle. Then I called a friend, Harper Knox, a lawyer I'd once pitched a software demo to. She hadn't invested, but she liked the way I presented. Said I had sharp instincts and a terrible poker face. She picked up on the first ring. Brandon, she said, curious. Didn't expect to hear from you. I need your help, I told her. And I'm not calling as a salesman. She heard the tone. She didn't ask for details. Meet me Monday. By Friday, she'd built a case. Derek had siphoned data, clients, and in at least one instance, sent duplicate invoices under a dummy shell company. We had the receipts. Madison's confession had filled in the rest. Harper leaned back in her chair, flipping through pages with the calm of someone who'd taken down bigger men for less. "You sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. "Lawsuits take time. Energy. You'll be dragged through it." "I already was," I said. "Now it's about standing up." She gave a small smile. "Then let's hit him where it counts." Court was quiet. Cold lighting, polished wood, the kind of place that demanded composure. Derek sat across from me, wearing a navy suit that fit too well for a man claiming he'd done nothing wrong. He wouldn't look at me directly. I didn't need him to. When the judge gave me the floor, I stood, buttoned my blazer, and walked up like I wasn't shaking inside. "Your Honor," I began. I trusted Derek Danner not just with my company, but with my loyalty. He was my friend, my partner. And when things started to fall apart, when we were both supposed to carry the weight, he chose to quietly walk away with the best pieces and leave me buried under the rest. I didn't raise my voice. His betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, strategic, hidden, and that's what made it worse. Because he didn't want to see me fail, he needed it. I turned slightly, eyes meeting his. "You didn't just hurt me, Derek. You hurt the people who depended on us. The clients. The interns who never got paid. The employees who stayed when they should have run. This isn't revenge. This is accountability." Derek looked away. The judge reviewed the files for an hour. The courtroom was silent. And then, the gavel came down. Derek's company would pay full damages. He was barred from founding another firm in-state for 5 years. His licensing was suspended. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. Outside the courthouse, I just stood still. And then my phone buzzed. "Nicole, saw the news. Proud of you. Dinner's on me tonight." 2 minutes later, a client I hadn't heard from in over a year. Then another, like little sparks on dry grass. One by one, the people came back. And just like that, ashes turned into kindling. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when she showed up. Nicole had gone out for groceries, and I was sitting on the porch, legs stretched out, coffee in hand, watching the amber leaves tumble across the sidewalk like they were trying to outrun the wind. The knock came soft, hesitant. I knew it was her before I even opened the door. Madison stood there in a long coat, hair tucked into a scarf, her makeup barely holding back the storm in her eyes. "Brandon," she said, her voice already cracking. "Please. I just need 5 minutes." I didn't move. "Just 5, she whispered. "Then I'll go. I swear." I stepped aside, not because I owed her anything, but because I needed to say what hadn't been said. She walked in slow, glancing around like the walls might accuse her. The living room was modest but warm. Books stacked on the table, the soft hum of Nicole's favorite jazz station playing low from the kitchen speaker. Madison took it all in, then turned toward me. "I've been thinking about you," she said, voice unsteady. "Since that day at your office. Since I finally told you everything." I nodded once. Let her speak. "I know I destroyed what we had. I know that," she said. "But I didn't come here to rewrite history. I came here because you need to know I still love you." I looked at her. Not the way I used to. Not with hope or longing. Just with the quiet steadiness of a man who had already buried a chapter. "I thought I did the right thing," she continued. "Back then, I was scared. I thought the business was dying, that you were slipping away. And Derek, he told me things that made it easy to believe it was all over. But I see it now. I see what I left behind." Tears slid down her cheeks. She didn't bother wiping them. "I confessed because I couldn't carry it anymore," she said. "Not to win you back. Not to clear my name. Just because I couldn't keep pretending it didn't matter. But now I'm standing here, and I can't ignore it anymore, Brandon. I want another chance. With you." Silence. Long enough for her hope to rise, then crash. "I'm sorry," I said gently. "But that part of my life is over." She blinked. "But I appreciate the truth," I added. "But the truth doesn't erase what you did when I needed you most." She stepped forward. "Brandon, you left," I said. Not in a storm of anger. Not during a fight. You looked me in the eye and walked away while I was bleeding out. And now that I'm standing again, now that I have something to show for the wreckage, you want to come home." She trembled. "You're right. You didn't come here to rewrite history," I said. "You came here because you can't live with how it ended. But I can. I made peace with it." She wrapped her arms around herself like the chill had finally reached her skin. "I loved you," she whispered. "I believe that," I replied. But Nicole loved me through it. That stopped her. I didn't say it with anger, just truth. She stood by me when there was nothing left to stand on. I said. She opened her door when I had nowhere to go. She filled the silence you left behind. Not to save me, just to be there. Madison's lip trembled. You're with her, she said softly. I'm hers, I replied. And I'm happy, truly. A long breath shuddered through her lungs. She nodded slowly. Then she turned toward the door. Her hand hesitated on the knob. I never meant to hurt you that way. I know, I said. But you did. And with that, she opened the door and stepped out into the crisp autumn light. I watched her walk down the path, her shoulders hunched, her steps slow. She didn't look back, and neither did I. The door clicked shut behind her, and it sounded nothing like an ending. It sounded like peace. The jewelry store wasn't fancy. Tucked between a diner and an old record shop, its sign faded and its bell on the door a little too eager. But it felt right. The man behind the counter was in his 60s, glasses sliding down his nose, his voice low and warm. I told him I didn't want anything flashy. Nothing big. Just honest. He nodded, like he understood that better than anything. 10 minutes later, I had it. A thin gold band. One single diamond. No extra frills. It didn't need them. Nicole wasn't the type to count carats. She noticed things like quiet effort and eye contact. That night, I came home to the scent of roasted garlic and the faint crackle of a vinyl playing from the corner. Nicole sat cross-legged on the couch, hair pulled back, a paperback open on her lap. She looked up. You're late. I held up a bag of takeout and a small black box. Had an errand to run. She raised an eyebrow. That from the sketchy taco place or the expensive one? I smiled, walked over, set the food down. Then I took a slow breath, reached into my pocket, and lowered myself onto one knee. Her eyes widened. The book dropped. Nicole Harlow. I said quietly, my voice already catching. You took me in when I had nothing. No pride, no place, barely a pulse. You reminded me how to breathe, how to stand back up. You didn't fix me. You just stood still beside me while I did it myself. She covered her mouth, eyes already glossy. And now, I added, opening the box, I want to spend the rest of my life standing beside you. There was one perfect beat of silence. Then she screamed, full joy, full volume, and practically tackled me off balance as she threw her arms around my neck. Yes, she shouted. You idiot, yes. I slipped the ring onto her finger, and she looked at it like it was glowing from the inside out. She held my face in both hands. Are you sure? I kissed her forehead. Never been more. And in her arms, I didn't feel broken or lucky or even redeemed. I just felt home. The garden was small. No grand arch, no rows of strangers, no rehearsed smiles for distant relatives. Just our closest people, a soft breeze through the trees, and Nicole, walking toward me in a simple white dress that floated like it belonged to the wind. I stood at the front, my heart steady. For once, no stage fright, no doubts. She reached me and took my hands. Her fingers were warm, always warm, and shaking just a little. I gave them a squeeze. The officiant spoke gently, but I barely heard him. My eyes didn't leave hers. When it was my turn, I didn't read from the folded card in my pocket. I just spoke. You loved me when I didn't even like myself. You stood still when the world turned its back. You didn't try to fix me. You just believed I could heal. Nicole's lips trembled. Her eyes never left mine. I don't care about yesterday, I said. All I want is every tomorrow, as long as you're in it. She didn't wait for permission. She leaned in, kissed me soft and full, and the garden around us disappeared. Applause broke gently around us. A few tears, a few cheers. But all I saw was her. Later, as we stood hand in hand under the evening sky, I looked at everything around me. Friends, laughter, peace, and thought. This is the win. Not the court ruling. Not the money. This. Finding something unshakable in the ashes of everything they tried to break. A new home. A new love. A quiet life built with both hands. The past? It's where it belongs. Behind me. That was the end of my story. And before you go, I want to ask you something that still sits heavy with me. When Madison finally came clean about Derek and the betrayal after everything was already destroyed, do you think her confession was the right thing to do? Or was it too late to matter? Tell me what you think in the comments. If this story made you feel something or gave you a new perspective, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because there are more stories like mine still waiting to be told.